Hello and welcome to Mann's Model Moments. The 7th of April 2024 was a blustery Sunday in the southwest of England, where I drove to my most local model show in Yeovil. This is held about every 6 months, and you may remember I did a video on the last one in October. I'll link that here. This time I'm starting off in the sports hall, and to begin with I wanted to give you guys a general idea of what the hall looked like before diving into the displays themselves, so join me as I walk down the left hand side here and show you various avenues throughout the hall. Spotted a very nefarious character here. After catching up with Moss, I carried on down the other side of the hall, and generally the layout here is much as it was 6 months ago. Onto the groups table and displays now. We start with West Berkshire, near the entrance to the hall. Also near the entrance was the Models for Heroes stand, and to remind everyone, this is absolutely the best thing you can do with your Airfix flying hours. North Devon Model Society was next, with a good range of vehicles, both civilian and military. The Gulf War SIG is a regular and notable attendee at most model shows I've attended over the past year, and Sunday was no exception. Cairn Model Club always puts on a good display at Yeovil, and they were in the same spot as in October, and they're an easy club to pick out with their varied display from these large dioramas, to this distinctive array of sci-fi and slightly more unusual subjects. The last of their tables covers everything from dinosaur skulls to delivery trucks, and it's well worth a visit if you spot them at a show you attend. St Athan's Scale Model Club gave us a nice varied selection of all types of aircraft in a variety of scales. I also rather like the selection of V-bombers in camo finish. Shepton Mallet Drifters showcased a variety of boats and ships in a variety of scales, as well as a couple of aircraft. I spotted these ICM cars at the Castle Road table, along with a few other subjects. You don't often see much rail at model shows, so it was a bit of a break to see these trams in the corner of the sports hall. The aircraft diorama SIG shows that it's not just AFVs that can tell a story, with a nice collection of varied and imaginative scenes. Trowbridge Composite Wing had some really nice and interesting liveried aircraft on show. The Planet figure tables are also always worth checking out if you see them at any show, because bust and figure painting makes a nice break from vehicles, and some of the talent on display is truly breathtaking. And this time I thought I'd show you some of the traders displaying slightly more interesting things than just rows of kits, this one being 3D Gizmo, who has featured on Airfix and Chill before. Back to the clubs with Southbrook now to close us out of the sports hall, and they've had some really nice large Luftwaffe models that you don't see. And they had some really nice large Luftwaffe models that you don't often see, which is nice. We then move on to the strange architectural phenomenon known as the dome. First up here is South Somerset, also known as the So-So modelers, who always have a nice balanced display. We then move to IPMS Gloucester, and a really nice selection of AFVs and dioramas, though I'm probably biased as the subjects are very much my kind of thing. Stonehenge modelers next, and another broad selection of military vehicles. Perhaps fittingly, after all this armour, is the tank transporter SIG, with a selection of even larger vehicles needed to cart MBTs all over the place at a better mileage than gallons to the mile. Cotswold scale modelers capped off the end of this line of tables with an extremely well organised collection of military aircraft of all ages. Opposite them were the Westlands and Yeovil district aero modelers with their indoor flying models, before I then toddle back to the entrance to come back up the opposite side, starting with the Elan 13 display. Next to them was the armoured division of the Portsmouth model boat display team, who had some truly epically sized models and dioramas on view. They also had some actual boats, as well as some aircraft and other subjects like this Firefox. I'd really like to do a model of this myself. No prizes for guessing the subject of the next SIG is the Churchill, of course, with about every iteration and modification you can think of for the old British infantry tank. And although their presence could be instantly heard within the dome, this brightly coloured display of RC trucks ruled out any ambiguity as to where the whirring electrical motor noise was coming from. Martin Thompson had a wide range of models on display across a whole swathe of genres. Avon Scale Model Society's display started a lot more focused, but soon showed a diversity of subjects too. Next up, something I've not seen before at a show, with a small battle taking place with subjects modelled in Lego. Another way to bring young modellers in for sure. The good people at Pool Vikings had their usual red livery display cloths out, and if you missed them at Yeovil, they have a show this coming Saturday the 13th, so check that out if you're anywhere near. They also have an excellent choice in model shops. North Somerset occupied the same section of the dome as in October, and I got a chance to catch up with some of the people I met back then, though they definitely had some new models on display. IPMS West Cornwall were flying their local colours, with a nice and tidy little display of some really interesting subjects. That included these nice aircraft dioramas with Sea Kings and Buccaneers. You'll see the Great War SIG in many shows, and they always have a nice display with a good variety of subjects and scales around the World War I subject. IPMS Avon also had a pretty varied display. I think the variation in clubs is always interesting to see how people with highly varied interests can come together. Just to show that, IPMS Plymouth started with this Brachiosaurus, which instantly reminded me of Fenris models, and again, moving along you can see another widely varied selection of subjects here. At the end of this aisle, we had the British Bulldogs, displaying a distinctly un-British selection of subjects. ISCA, home club of Moss from Moss 6510 models, had another great display. I especially like this Ukrainian digital camo Su-27 and the familiar Ghost of Kiev MiG-29. Due to some building work in the upper building, the rest of the show was in the lower hall, which was a few minutes walk down from the other halls. Being a bit more isolated and a bit smaller, I think this might have given the impression that the show was smaller than October, but I'm not sure that was really the case. In any case, Steve Bell had a selection of very large-scale items, like this Lancaster and the Leopold railgun. Next was a display I've not seen before from the Victoria Cross Trust, which is a really interesting collection of models depicting VC holders and describing their history, which I thought was a really nice way to do things and honour these people. The British Model Flying Association display of large-scale flying aircraft dominated the far end of the hall, whilst opposite them were the first of several Welsh clubs, this one MAFV South Wales branch. IPMS Dartmoor featured a pretty eclectic mix, and I did spot a Ferry Delta II on display here. The Romania SIG was next, with a small but colourful display of country-themed subjects. Pool-scale modelers also had a nice clean lineup. But it was a little overshadowed by the Union Jack flag and vertical display elements of the Plymouth Pilgrims next door. Just for Fun's display is always good for a smile, and I think it's also the sort of display that will catch the eye of children. Again, a good way of getting them into the hobby. This display of 1-to-1 scale weapons, including Star Wars blasters as well as real-world guns, would take a bit of explaining, I imagine, if you were stopped by the police for some reason. Another Welsh club I don't think I've seen here before, and that we close with, is Revell Modelers Club, with some really nice pieces, including this unusual and eye-catching whale. I hope this gives you a good idea of what the Yeovil show is like, and it encourages you to visit either in the spring or the autumn if you're anywhere nearby. For me, it's just the right size. It's not too big as to feel exhausting, but with plenty to see and a good mix of traders, both new and second-hand, plus of course the club table purchases. Myself and Moss almost always attend the show too, so if you're thinking of popping into the next one, do say hello. That's all for this instalment of Mann's Model Moments. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more like it, and share this video with others you think would also enjoy it. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you're feeling generous then I also have a Patreon, which is absolutely the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like this. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.